A very good morning to all my dear students. Today we'll be having a discussion on diseases of pulp and periradicular tissue, which is chapter 2. And the chapter is mainly divided into part 1 and part 2 sections. Part 1 which will be dealing with pulp diseases and part 2 which will be dealing the periradicular tissue diseases. Okay, so it is dealt in part 1 and part 2. So let's begin with the diseases of pulp and periradicular tissue part 1, which has mainly pulp diseases. So the references, as I have explained it in the previous chapter, that it should refer Grossman's Endodontic Practice, Engel, Cohen and Nisha Garg textbook of endodontics. To know about pulpal diseases, we should know what is a normal pulp and how it acts and what are the contents of the pulp, etc. Okay, so pulp is a formative organ of the tooth. So this word is very important, that pulp is a formative organ of the tooth. It builds dentin, secondary dentin and reparative dentin. Okay, dentin when it is during the development of the tooth, secondary dentin when after the tooth eruption, reparative dentin production in response to the stimulation. Okay, these are the three productive or three building blocks of the or building products of the pulp, which forms dentin, secondary dentin and reparative dentin. In the right hand picture you can see normal tooth cross section, where you can see the pulpal contents as well as pulp is covered or entirely covering the dentin, which is adjacent to the pulp, and this pulp is giving formation to the dentin and dentin substitutes. Coming on to the cells of the pulp, pulp contains so many varieties of cells, mainly fibroblasts. Okay, fibroblasts are the main contents of the pulp, that is mainly the blast cells as well as the other cells. Okay, so it is fibroblast, undifferentiated mesenchymal cells, odontoblast, defense cells and pulp stem cells or pulpal stem cells. So these are the blast cells which are fibroblast and odontoblast, which are contained in the pulp. So fibroblasts give rise to fibers and odontoblast give rise to dentin. In the picture you can see odontoblastic layer, fibroblast as well as procollagen layers. Okay, so the in between there is a zone shown as cell free zone. Okay, so this will be explained, and proteoglycan is also you can see there. So it contains fibroblast and odontoblast, which gives the production, and as well as undifferentiated mesenchymal cells and defense cells with pulpal stem cells. When we see up to the zones of the pulp, there are mainly 4 zones of the pulp. Okay, 4 zones. One is odontoblastic zone, which is at the periphery, which is in contact with the dentin, and second zone is cell free zone, that is zone of Weil, which is beneath the odontoblast. Third zone is cell rich zone, and fourth zone is pulp core, that is the inner core of the pulp. Cell free zone is a special characteristic feature. There it has only fibers, it is no cells are there, that is why it is called as cell free. Now cell rich zone has many rich cells. Okay, so there is one more thing we should know, that is the parietal layer is there in between the cell rich zone. Okay, that has the plexus of nerves, that is called as plexus of Raschkow. Okay, plexus of Raschkow. So what you should know, basically what you should know is cell free zone is there. Okay, that is also called as zone of Weil. Second point, cell rich zone is there, that consists mainly many of the cells, which is fibroblast, all those cells. Okay, and the pulp core is there, which consists of which has the principal support system for the peripheral pulp, that has large vessels and nerves. The large parietal or perineural plexus are there, or parietal neural plexus are there, which is called as plexus of Raschkow. Okay, all these points are important. Now let's see the pathways of spread of infection. When something infection is occurring into the tooth, which way it spreads or how it occurs. Okay, if it is from the coronal aspect of the tooth, then it directly reaches the pulp tissue after the dentin, approximating the dentin, then it directly reaches the pulp. From there the infection can spread into the accessory canals as well as the apical canal or apical foramen. Okay, through that it can go into the periapical tissues. So that is how the infection spreads. Now accessory canals are there, which causes infection into the lateral areas of the tooth or tooth root, as well as apical region is there, which is infected by the apical foramen, openings through the apical foramen, where the infection spreads into the periapical area. Okay, so this is how infection can spread. So these are the 2 pathways of spread of the infection. Sometimes what happens is, when there is apical infection or periapical infection, that even goes into the teeth. Okay, that can affect the tooth, so it is like retrograde infection. Before we move into the other sections, first we should know the terminology which is called as barodontalgia. Okay, barodontalgia. What is it? It is baro means pressure. Okay, so this is the dontalgia, that is pain in the teeth. Okay, dontalgia means pain. Dontalgia means tooth pain. Okay, so barodontalgia, that is tooth pain due to the pressure changes. So whenever there is a pressure change, the pressure change can cause pain in the tooth. That is why when it is called as barodontalgia. Now when the tooth is normally on the ground, you can see in the picture, it has no problem. But when you are going in an aeroplane, or when you are climbing up to a high pressure area, that is climbing on the hill area, something like that, okay, or an airplane, okay, those all things causes pressure changes, due to which you will have a pain in the teeth. Now there are 4 types or 4 classes of this barodontalgia: class 1, class 2, class 3 and class 4. Class 1 is acute pulpitis, due to the pathology of acute pulpitis, when there is sharp sudden decompression pain with no problems on compression. Okay, class 2 is due to due to the chronic pulpitis, where there will be dull throbbing decompression pain with no problems on compression. Class 3 is due to necrotic pulp with dull throbbing compression pain. Okay, and class 4 is due to the periapical or apical periodontitis or any cyst, that is that is a strong persisting decompression or compression pain. So these are the 4 types of barodontalgia classification by Roche. Roche's classification of barodontalgia. Another terminology is anachrosis. Anachrosis. Okay, anachrosis. This refers to the attraction or fixation of blood-borne bacteria in the areas of the inflammation. So any blood-borne bacteria are running in the blood circulation that situates or fixes into the areas of the inflammation. This is what it's called as anachrosis. The most common bacteria isolated from the root canals. Okay, the mostly whenever you isolate bacteria from the root canal, what you can expect is Streptococcus viridans, Streptococcus albus and Staphylococcus aureus. So viridans, albus and staph aureus. S viridans, S albus and staph aureus. These are the 3 most commonly isolated bacteria from the root canals. Okay, so anachrosis means it refers to the attraction or fixation of blood-borne bacteria in the areas of the inflammation. These are very important from the point of view of MCQs. Moving on to the classification of pulpal diseases. What all diseases can a pulp have? Okay, according to Grossman's classification is the main classification. So according to him, there are mainly 3 categories of pulpal diseases. One is inflammatory disease of the dental pulp, which has irreversible as well as irreversible pulpitis. Reversible can be symptomatic as well as asymptomatic. That can be symptomatic with acute thing, and asymptomatic which will be chronic. Irreversible pulpitis is also same thing. Acute will be there and as well as chronic will be there. Acute can be of 2 types: abnormally responsive to cold as well as abnormally responsive to heat. Chronic can be of 3 types, that is asymptomatic with pulpal exposure, hypoplastic pulpitis and internal resorption. So this is inflammatory disease of the pulp, where there will be reversible pulpitis as well as irreversible pulpitis. Second category is pulpal degeneration, where there will be calcific degeneration or other categories of degeneration. Calcific degeneration is radiographic diagnosis, whereas other categories of pulpal degeneration, those are histopathological diagnosis. Okay, that important point you have to remember. Now third category is necrosis. So this is from the classification of pulpal diseases by Grossman. Moving on to the sequelae of pulpal diseases. What is the sequelae? What all happens? What is the happening sequence? Okay, that is about the pulpal diseases. When there is normal pulp which is affected by some noxious stimuli, there can be reversible pulpitis. Okay, or normal pulp can go to reversible pulpitis. Left side you can say it is going into pulpal necrosis, as well as right side you can see it is going in for the calcific degeneration or calcific metamorphosis. So normal pulp can have these 3 changes. From the reversible pulpitis stage, that can go into the irreversible pulpitis if it is not treated. Irreversible pulpitis shows chronic hypoplastic pulpitis, symptomatic irreversible pulpitis, asymptomatic irreversible pulpitis, as well as internal resorption. These are the 4 types of irreversible pulpitis what you can expect. Now these all 4 types can go into pulpal necrosis if it is not treated at that stage. Okay, and one more thing, when you get calcific degeneration, that will be due to stimuli which are causing degenerating pulpal changes. So calcific degeneration or calcific metamorphosis. So normal pulp can go into reversible pulpitis, which goes into irreversible pulpitis and pulpal necrosis. Normal pulp directly can go to pulpal necrosis, and normal pulp can go into the calcific metamorphosis stage. Now let's see the various diseases of the pulp in detail or in consideration to the MCQ point of view. First and foremost point you have to remember is that initial pulp response to any insult, if anything happens to the pulp, the initial response will be always inflammation. Okay, so the initial response of the pulp to any insult is inflammation. In the picture you can see that tooth is there, tooth cross section you can see there. When caries or old filling due to that secondary caries, any kind of tooth decay, okay, that can go into the pulp, so which can infect the pulp leading to all these diseases which we are going to explain further. First one is reversible pulpitis. What do you mean by reversible pulpitis? The name itself says that pulpitis can be reversible or reverted back. That means that the pulpitis can be reverted back to normal. Okay, so this is a mild to moderate inflammatory condition of the pulp which is caused by noxious stimuli, in which pulp is capable of returning to the uninflamed state following the removal of the stimuli. When there is a stimuli which is causing a pulpal reversible pulpitis, if the stimulus is removed, the pulp can go back into the normal state, that is uninflamed state. Okay, so this is called as reversible pulpitis, where the noxious stimuli is removed so that pulp can go back to the normal thing. Okay, this will be having sharp short pain which is lasting for a moment. Okay, sharp pain which responds to cold, as well as percussion test will be negative. These are the three important points you should remember. The pain will be of sharp shooting type or short pain which is lasting for a moment, response to cold, and percussion test is negative. For the treatment aspect, you should consider it prevention is the best treatment for this, and sedative dressing if any pain is there, so sedative dressing can be given, early insertion of restoration can be given. Okay, these are the treatment aspects. You can see a carious lesion in a mandibular primary molar which might present with reversible pulpitis in the picture. So reversible pulpitis due to stimulus, on removal of the stimulus the pulp is going back to the normal thing. Once in that stage, if that stage is also gone further, okay, so that becomes irreversible pulpitis, where the pulp is not treated when it has reversible pulpitis. Okay, if not treatment has been delivered at that stage of reversible pulpitis, then the pulp goes into the irreversible change. That means it cannot be reverted back to normal pulp. Okay, so irreversible pulpitis, it has persistent inflammation condition or inflammatory condition of the pulp with symptomatic or asymptomatic. Okay, this can be two types, symptomatic or asymptomatic, which is caused by noxious stimuli. It is defined as point where an inflamed pulp is no longer capable of healing and returning to normal. These points which is in the red, which are very very important. Okay, so symptomatic or asymptomatic can be there, which is persistent inflammatory condition, which is where the pulp is not no longer capable of healing and returning to normal. The causes can be bacterial involvement, that is a very most common cause which you can see is bacterial involvement. Other causes can be chemical, thermal, mechanical injuries, reversible pulpitis which is untreated. Now pain is there. So in this case, if it is early condition, then the pain will be sharp, piercing or shooting type. It is generally severe and intermittent or continuous. Okay, intermittent or continuous type of pain. If it is late case of irreversible pulpitis, then there will be severe, boring, gnawing type of throbbing or presence of nocturnal pain also will be there. Okay, boring, gnawing, throbbing type of pain, and plus there will be nocturnal pain, that is night pain also will be there. Pain increases by heat and relieved by cold. This is one more feature. Okay, so whenever the pulp is not able to go back to the normal state, that becomes the irreversible pulpitis, where there will be sharp pain which is severe, boring, gnawing type or throbbing type of pain, which you can expect at a night time also. Nocturnal pain also is there. Okay, one more point you should always remember about irreversible pulpitis is it shows spontaneous pain. Okay, spontaneous, that means suddenly whenever you are sitting very normally, whenever you are very normal, suddenly you develop a pain. That is because of this irreversible pulpitis. There are two types of irreversible pulpitis. One is symptomatic, one is asymptomatic. Okay, to make you understand better, symptomatic means which shows some symptoms like pain. Okay, asymptomatic means the pulp, when you see the clinical picture of the tooth, that you understand there itself that this is asymptomatic irreversible pulpitis, because there is no symptom so far. The pulp is inflamed, or it has gone beyond that stage where the symptoms, no longer the symptoms were there, never the symptoms were there. Okay, the tooth shows no symptoms at all, but the stage of the tooth is in the irreversible pulpitis. Okay, so irreversible pulpitis symptomatic case, there will be pulpal inflammation which is irreversible in nature, which is usually caused by deep dental caries or restorations. Spontaneous pain may occur or be precipitated by thermal or other stimuli. pain is lingering and lasts for several minutes to hours. That is one plus point. Okay, pain is lingering and lasts for several minutes to hours. Now symptomatic in nature of the pain is sharp, exaggerated, painful in response to the thermal stimulus, and either one or a combination of the following symptoms can be seen, which can be spontaneous pain, continuous pain, lingering pain, or nocturnal pain. In case of asymptomatic, the pulpal inflammation irreversible in nature, but which is caused by deep dental caries or the restoration, similar to the irreversible. Symptomatic case also. The tooth is asymptomatic, and if left untreated, it will become symptomatic irreversible pulpitis. Okay, or the pulp might become necrotic. These are the two chances where it can go further. And asymptomatic in nature. Okay, no symptoms will be there. When you see histopathologically, there will be chronic inflammatory response. Okay, chronic inflammatory responses will be there. PMNLs will be there. Lysosomal enzymes will be there. Capillaries will be very prominent, and fibroblastic activity will be evident. If the caries process continues to advance and penetrate the pulp, there will be areas of ulceration seen in the histopathology. Okay, so chronic inflammatory response and areas of ulceration is an important point. When you are considering diagnosis part, there will be pain, which you can which helps you to diagnose the case. Okay, pain means what kind of pain will be there for irreversible. The pain will be dull, gnawing tripe, or which will be spontaneous, and also there will be presence of night pain, or postural changes also can cause pain. Okay, these are all the points where you are diagnosing the irreversible pulpitis. There will be a deep cavity, probing, radiograph, thermal test, all these also can be considered for the diagnosis. Now when considering the treatment, there is only one treatment aspect which is very very important, that is pulpectomy or root canal treatment. Okay, sometimes pulpotomy or surgical removal can also be opted based on the clinical scenarios. Okay, so the main important treatment aspect for irreversible pulpitis is either pulpectomy or root canal treatment, or you remove the tooth itself. In cases of acute pulpitis, that means that in a stage, acute and chronic, they differ in wordings, saying that acute is for the 2 to 5 days duration, and chronic is more than that, more than 1 week if the pain lasts. If the pulpitis is there since more than 1 week, then it is chronic stage. Okay, in cases of acute pulpitis, it is difficult for the patient to locate the pain because the pulp does not contain proprioceptor nerve endings. Okay, so pulp does not contain proprioceptor nerve endings to locate the pain of the acute pulpitis. Hence, very less pain location is possible unless it involves the periapical or apical periodontal ligament. Okay, so once it is involving the apical periodontal ligament, there will have TOP. Okay, that is tender on percussion, where that effect will be because of the periodontal ligaments. Okay, then your location of the pain becomes perfect. Now, whenever there is pulpal inflammation, okay, that is mainly marked by the increased vascular permeability. Chronic pulpitis is the most difficult pulpal or periapical pathosis to diagnose. Okay, chronic pulpitis, because in that chronic stage you don't know whether to diagnose it as pulpal disease or periapical disease. You have to be cautious and know all the differences to diagnose. So chronic pulpitis is the most difficult pulpal or periapical pathosis to diagnose. These are the some important points you should remember always in your mind. Okay, there can be asked in any ways. Okay, so these are the important MCQ oriented points. Moving on to chronic hypoplastic pulpitis. What is a chronic hypoplastic pulpitis? It is saying that it is chronic stage, it is of chronic stage, it is hyperplastic reaction of the pulp tissue. So it is hyperplastic pulpitis. It is a productive pulpal inflammation due to an extensive carious exposure of a young pulp. Okay, these words are very important, which is due to extensive carious exposure of young pulp. Okay, that is young permanent teeth or young deciduous teeth, that is mainly the first permanent molar or second deciduous molars. This disorder is characterized by the development of granulation tissue covered at times with epithelium, and which is resulting from long standing low grade irritation. Okay, that is due to long standing low grade irritation, which means that it is of the chronic stage. So it develops granulation tissue covered with epithelium due to long standing low grade irritation. That are very important. Okay, to understand those wordings are very very important. It happens due to a caries. You can see in the picture where there is a carious tooth from which a bulbous kind of extension is coming of the pulp, that is of the pulp tissue. Okay, extension of the pulp tissue that is found by the stratified squamous epithelium which is covering the pulp, that is pulp polyp. Okay, so it is known as pulp polyp also, inside which granulation tissues are there inside from inside to the deeply carious tooth. So the main causative things are bacterial involvement, as you can see in the picture, chemical, thermal or mechanical injuries, as well as reversible pulpitis which is untreated can go to this stage. So it is also called as pulp polyp. So it is a extensive carious exposure. When there is an extensive carious exposure, from that pulpal inflammation becomes of a young pulp, okay, characterized by proliferated growth of the pulpal tissue. Okay, this is due to the proliferative growth of the pulpal tissue, and that growth is due to growth forms the development of granulation tissue. The tissue within the pulp chamber, that is often transformed into a granulation tissue which projects from the pulp into the carious lesion. Okay, that is what you can see in there. The granulation tissue is young. It is very vascular connective tissue which containing polymorphonuclear neutrophils, lymphocytes as well as plasma cells. Okay, these three contents will be there. So the granulation tissue is very young, which has highly vascular connective tissue which is containing polymorphonuclear neutrophils, lymphocytes and plasma cells. The pulp tissue is chronically inflamed. That word itself is very important. Chronically inflamed. Nerve fibers may be found in the epithelial layer. So the diagnosis part, when you come to the diagnosis part, this the points you should remember is there will be a reddish mass which you can see, which is extending from the carious teeth, that is deeply carious teeth, which is less sensitive, but when you touch it bleeds very easily. Okay, that is because of the hyperplasticity of the pulpitis, or it is because of the vascular connective tissue, which is the young vascular connective tissue. Okay, so it bleeds very easily. On the radiograph you can see the same thing, as well as on the thermal test or pulp testing, it will be showing delayed responses. Okay, so the diagnosis mainly is by the bleeding. Okay, so it bleeds very easily. Coming on to the next aspect of the pulp, which is the nerve fibers of the pulp. Okay, there are different fibers which you should know, and the different features of nerve fibers also should be understood. Now, different fibers, okay, types of nerve fibers in the pulp are A beta, A delta, C fibers as well as the sympathetic one. Okay, so A beta is very important, which carries pressure and touch. Okay, pressure and touch with the A beta, beta pressure and touch. Okay, A delta and C fibers carries pain. A delta and C fibers, pain. Okay, so those two fibers are the main fibers related to pain. Now sympathetic is there, which has the post-ganglionic sympathetic fibers, which has the function of neurogenic modulation of the microcirculation, that is constriction of arterioles and decreases the blood flow, inflammatory reaction as well as regulation of the dentinogenesis. Okay, these are by the post-ganglionic sympathetic fibers. Now the different nerve fibers in the pulp, they are A beta, A alpha, A delta and C. Okay, first what I told was the function of these important fibers. Okay, that is A beta pressure and touch, A delta and C fibers which carries pain. Now different types of fibers are A and C, in which A has three types: A alpha, A beta, A delta. Okay, along with that C also is there. Now A alpha, A beta, these two fibers are not that important. Okay, what is very important for us is A delta and C fiber, because A delta fiber is the fiber which carries the mediation of pain, temperature and touch. Okay, with the diameter, smaller diameter, which is 2 to 5, and it possesses the conduction velocity of 5 to 30 meters per second. Now C fibers, they mostly mediate the pain. Okay, they mediate the pain. A delta has mediation of pain, temperature and touch. Okay, so C fibers mostly mediate the pain with the diameter of 0.4 to 1.2. The smaller one is C fiber. Okay, C fiber is 0.4 to 1.2, whereas A delta is 2 to 5, and the conduction velocity is also small, which is 0.5 to 2.5 meter per second. Okay, whereas A delta fibers have 5 to 30 meter per second. That is very fast, sharp shooting pain kind of things, which will be very easily or fast mediation of the pain. Whereas C fibers are the core fibers, which will be having a dull pain recognition, which is due to the conduction velocity is very, very less. Okay, nerve fibers associated with pressure is A beta. Okay, these three types of fibers you should remember regardingly. So as I have told, we should know the main fibers, that is A delta fiber and C fibers. There are certain differentiating features of these two fibers which you should understand. Okay, A delta fiber is situated in the periphery. Okay, so it is mainly seen in the periphery of the pulp. This is myelinated, which is having fast conducting and low threshold fibers. Okay, large fibers which are fast conducting. Large and fast conducting fibers are A delta fibers. How you can remember is on the periphery of the pulp, because when you are touching there, it is the periphery what you touch easily. Okay, so there you have A delta fibers. They are large and fast conducting. Okay, next, intimate association with the odontoblastic cell layer is there and dentin is there. That is in the pulpodentinal complex. It is on the pulpodentinal complex. Quick, sharp momentary pain will be developed. Drilling, probing, hypersensitivity will cause this pain damage. Okay. Now about C fibers. C fibers are non-myelinated fibers which are very small with high threshold fibers. They are not involved in pulpodentinal complex. They are located centrally in the pulp stroma, that is in the pulp core. They develop dull, poorly localized pain, and pain is associated with inflammatory tissue. Now A delta fiber, what you should remember is they will be at the pulpodentinal complex, quick and sharp pain which has faster conduction. C fibers, they are in the core fibers of the pulp which develops dull pain. Okay, now the nerve fibers which respond to electric pulp pressure, excited by the hydrodynamic events such as air drying or drilling, or involved in hypersensitivity, all these applies to A delta fibers, whereas nerve fibers involved in inflammatory or more susceptible to local anesthetic, these are C fibers. These 2 points are also you should remember. When we are talking about reversible and irreversible pulpite, there is a differentiating factor of irreversible pulpitis which says that on lying down the pressure within the pulp changes, so there is changes of the posture. Okay, due to that the pain develops. So this is because of the pressure changes, right? So we should know the pressures. Okay, now moving to the intrapulpal pressure, that is what the pressure is meant there, the intrapulpal pressure. Normally in the normal pulp there will be 10 mm per Hg pressure, intrapulpal pressure, whereas in reversible pulpitis cases this will be 13 mm per Hg, and when it becomes irreversible pulpitis the pressure reaches into 34.5 mm per Hg. Okay, how you should remember is normal, reversible, and then irreversible, right? Like that the sequence. Now the numbering also you should remember like a 10, 13, 34.5, 10, 13, 34. Okay, 10, 13, 34. Let's talk some fact about root resorption. What do you mean by root resorption? The pulp plays an important role in 2 types of resorptions. Okay, so the root part, when it is getting resorbed, it is known as root resorption. Then pulp has an important role in these 2 types of root resorption. Okay, there are 2 types of root resorption, which is internal inflammatory resorption as well as external inflammatory root resorption. Okay, now internal resorption, it is also called as pink tooth of mammary or odontoclastoma. Okay, pink tooth of mammary or odontoclastoma. Odonto, that is dentin, clastoma, which has the clast cells, which is the resorption cells. Okay, so odontoclastoma as well as pink tooth of mammary. What is internal resorption? When there is resorption taking place inside the pulp. Okay, inside the pulp which is adjacently resorbing the dentinal tissues. Okay, that calls as the internal resorption. Now it is an idiopathic, slow or fast progressive resorption process which is occurring in the dentin of the pulp chamber or root canals of the teeth. Okay, dentin of the pulp chamber or root canals of the teeth. That means that next to the pulp, if the dentin is resorbing, that is called as internal resorption. There are 2 types of internal resorption which you should know, that is inflammatory internal resorption as well as replacement or metaplastic resorption. Now the cause of this can be trauma. Most of the cases the cause will be trauma. Internal resorption in a teeth, that is seen as non-proliferating lesion. Okay, it is seen as non-proliferating lesion, internal resorption. Okay, now the pathosis of internal resorption means when there can be 3 layers, 1, 2, 3. You can see that picture. That is predentin layer, odontoblastic layer, and vital pulp tissue. Okay, in a case where there will be resorption, that is due to some chronic changes. Okay, chronic stage of irritation to the pulp, that can lead to this changes in the pulp. Okay, so the pulpal tissue undergoes degenerative changes such as internal resorption. In the final picture you can see how it is progressed into resorption. One more thing you should understand is, when does this internal resorption takes place? Whenever there is a caries which is happening or any trauma which is affecting the pulp. Okay, so those areas of involvement which is involving the pulp, there will be odontoblastic degeneration as well as loss of pulpal vitality. There's inflammation and necrotic, it becomes, that pulp becomes inflamed and necrotic. Okay, so further it goes into the activation of odontoclast and produces internal resorption, or it makes into replacement by the granulation tissue. Okay, that is how internal resorption takes place. The clinical features of internal resorption includes, it involves oval shaped enlargement of the root canal space. Okay, it is shown as oval shaped enlargement of the root canal space, asymptomatic, and is first recognized clinically through the routine radiograph. The pain may be presenting symptom if perforation of the crown occurs. Okay, and the metaplastic tissue is exposed to the oral fluids. Only then the pain will be felt. For internal resorption to be active, at least part of the pulp must be vital, okay, so that we can say that that is actively happening resorption, so that a positive response to pulp sensitivity testing is expected. So to be active, only at least a part of the pulp should be vital. Now considering histopathological features, there will be osteoclastic activity, bone resorbing activity, lacunae will be present, multinuclear giant cells or dentinoclasts will be present, as well as metaplasia of the pulp can also be seen. In the picture you can see how darkened or how the pink tooth of mammary is seen, because the whole of the tooth becomes pink or only some part of the tooth becomes pink, so it is known as pink tooth of mammary. What helps you to diagnose this feature? For the diagnosis, there should be crown or root or both will be affected. It will be 1 or 2 years, 1 to 2 years case. Maxillary anterior teeth is the most commonly affected teeth. Maxillary anteriors are the most commonly affected teeth. Pink spot can be seen. Radiographically, you can see these features. When you consider the radiographs, you can see that the pulpal canal will not be so narrow and continuous. There will be a oval shaped radiolucency in the pulp tissue or in the pulp space, which is extending into the dentin aspect, okay. So pulp test, it can be showing the delayed response or negative response. The method of treating an internal resorption is by extirpation of the pulp and dressing, calcium hydroxide dressing, okay. So the treatment for this internal resorption is extirpation of the pulp and calcium hydroxide dressing. This is not the only treatment, but mostly preferred treatment is this, so you should know that, okay. So calcium hydroxide dressing is given for the internal resorption treatment. Next is external resorption. It is characterized by necrotic infected pulp tissue which provides stimulus for the periodontal inflammation. So this is along with the periodontal inflammation. Now the etiology can be cemental damage. Most of the cases that is the etiology, that is cemental damage. Now clinical features, there are two types of these external resorption you can see. One is apical, one is lateral, okay. Apical with apical periodontitis, which is due to the root canal infection. Lateral due to cemental damage, okay. These are the two types of external root resorption. That means that external surface of the root gets resorbed, okay. Or these types, other types which we can say are surface resorption, inflammatory resorption, replacement resorption. These are the three types of external resorption from the other category, okay. So external root resorption, when there is cemental damage or any apical periodontitis which due to the root canal infection, that spreads into the outer surface of the root where there will be resorption, okay. So the outer surface of the roots will be getting resorbed. Moving on to the treatment and prognosis aspect, for the internal resorption, removal of all soft tissue from the site of resorption is important. Endodontic treatment before perforation in internal resorption case is preferred. Placement of calcium hydroxide paste for remineralization, surgical exposure and restoration, or else extraction can be considered. For the external resorption, identification and elimination of the accelerating factor is the only ideal treatment. Else the teeth will get loosened and it will fall down or it will go for extraction. Coming to pulp degeneration, what is pulp degeneration? After chronic stage of irritation which is occurring to the pulp undergoes degenerative changes, okay. So the changes what you can expect are calcific changes, either it becomes calcified, either the pulp becomes calcified, or atrophic, that becomes atrophied, or it becomes fibrous, that means the pulp tissue becomes fibrous, okay. These are the three changes which can happen in a pulpal degeneration, that are the degeneration changes. Now it is mostly seen with older people. Teeth may result from persistent mild irritation in the teeth of younger people. Early stage, no definite clinical symptoms will be there. Tooth not discolored, pulp may react normally, okay. So it normally shows degeneration with discolored, okay, discolored teeth. There are three forms: calcific, atrophic as well as fibrous. First, let's see what is calcific degeneration. It is replaced by calcific material, that is the pulp tissues are replaced by calcific materials. Within the pulp chamber or root canal this happens, and calcified material has a laminated structure. So this is classified as based on position, free, attached or embedded, okay. So in the picture, right hand uppermost picture, you can see that free pulp stones, attached pulp stones or embedded pulp stones, okay. So these are calcific changes, that is calcification which is causing the formation of stones, that is pulp stones. Based on the structure, it is classified as true or false. In true pulp stones, they are rare and contain dentin and distinct dentinal tubules which is lined by odontoblast. And in false cases, false pulp stones, it contains a connective or concentric layers of mineralized tissue formed by the surface acceleration around the blood thrombi, dying or dead cells or collagen fibers. These are the false pulp stones. So calcific changes are causing the formation of the pulp stones. Atrophic degeneration. In pulp of older people it is seen, fewer stellate cells will be there, intercellular fluid is increased, and the most important point you should remember is pulp tissue is less sensitive. So the pulp tissue becomes atrophic, whereas this will become less sensitive. Third one is fibrous. Okay, fibrous degeneration. The replacement of the cellular elements by fibrous connective tissue takes place. As I have explained in the previous slide, where I have shown you the contents of the pulp or the zones of pulp, there will be cell free and cell rich zones, right? So this cells will be gone, that is cellular contents are replaced by the fibrous connective tissue elements, that is fibrous growth increases. Okay, fibers increases there, so it becomes a leathery fiber consistency of the pulp tissue, as you can see in the picture. Okay, there is no distinguishing clinical symptom to aid in the diagnosis. So those are the three types of degeneration, that is calcific degeneration, atrophic degeneration and fibrous degeneration. Pulp necrosis. Once all the stages have come across and still there is no treatment done, then the pulp undergoes necrosis. Okay, that stage itself, that is the final or end stage, is called as pulpal necrosis. It means that the death of the pulp has occurred. Okay, death of the pulp. Now sequelae to inflammation. This happens as a sequelae to the inflammation that I said already, because if any inflammation from the beginning, so far all the disease stage it has passed and there is no treatment done so far, then it becomes death. Okay, death of the pulp tissue, that is the sequelae to inflammation is the pulpal necrosis, or following a traumatic injury to which pulp is destroyed before an inflammatory reaction takes place. That also can happen. In ischemic infarction develops, which leads to the formation of dry gangrenous necrotic pulp. Okay, here what develops? Ischemic infarction. Okay, which leads to the formation of dry gangrenous necrotic pulp, as you can see in the picture, which is a very black tooth. That is due to that. Now the causes are necrosis of the pulp, which can be caused by any noxious insult injurious to the pulp, such as bacteria, trauma and chemical irritation. The type of pulp necrosis are, there are three types: coagulation necrosis, cassation necrosis, liquefaction necrosis. Okay, so the coagulant necrosis is soluble portion of the tissue, that is which is precipitated. Cessation or cassation is cheesy mass. Okay, most of the cases cheesy masses will be seen, which is cassation. Liquefaction necrosis is there, where the proteolytic enzymes convert the tissue into softened mass, a liquid or amorphous debris, which is known as liquefaction necrosis. These are the three types of pulpal necrosis: coagulation necrosis, cassation as well as liquefaction necrosis. Clinical features, you can see there will be a discoloration of the tooth, as I already told in the picture. There will be discolored tooth. The tooth may have a definite greyish or brownish discoloration. Teeth with partial necrosis can respond to thermal changes. That means that only partially it is necrosed, part of the pulp is vital, so it can respond to thermal changes. Now the diagnosis part, diagnosis is mainly by the pain absent, which is in the total necrosis cases. History shows trauma or history of any severe pain. Radiograph will be shown which shows large cavity or restoration. In the vitality testing there will be no response, that is non-responding tooth. Histopathologically, if you see, there will be necrotic pulp tissue, cellular debris and microorganisms which may be seen in the pulp cavity. And the periapical tissue may be normal, or slight evidence of inflammation of the apical periodontal ligament will be seen. Okay, so these are the two features which you can expect in the histopathology. And the treatment aspect, there is only preparation and obturation of the canal, that means root canal treatment. So this is only the treatment option for the pulpal necrosis. Okay, if the root content is firm, properly there, root length is there, then you have to follow with the root canal treatment. So the main points which you should understand is discoloration of the tooth. With partial necrosis, there will be thermal changes which can respond, or greyish or brownish discoloration will be seen. Vitality, there will be no response. Thus it completes the diseases of the pulp part. Next part will be dealing with the periradicular tissue diseases.